All right. Well, it looks like we are live. Good morning, everyone. Rise and shine. Welcome to the webinar. So, starting the cast, I can hear myself right now currently. So, I mean, it seems like it's working. Let's get that live chat started. For all of you RCSM students that are here right now, a reminder to log into your Gmail before you access the stream in order for us to have your name on the chat. It's a great way to screenshot to use. Um, so we'll just give everyone a couple minutes actually to start off and make sure that everyone that is going to be attending is logged on and just checking out our webinar. Hopefully everyone is having a good morning. This is a pretty eventful day for Nonprofit Leadership Alliance students. We have our webinar this morning, and then tomorrow, or not tomorrow, tonight, in a little less than 12 hours, we're going to be having our pizza social. So it's a kind of a combination of a pizza party and a general meeting. For all of you RCSM 150 students, really invite you all to come out, bring a friend, bring someone that might be interested in joining the minor. How are the chats? We got chats going? Let's see who's all alive right now. Did he comment?
Hey, Dr. Sharma, got my coffee.
Got your coffee? All right. Yeah. As we're waiting, make sure just to make yourselves comfy. Get a cup of coffee. Yep. All right, Braylon. Happy to have you join us. Alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic. That's how we're all feeling right now today. So real quick, let's just show where we're at right now. We're currently at the library. We got our study room set up. We have our nice little setup for our live cast. Courtney and I, who will be presenters last year, we did it on our own. So it's a little more complex, but we have a really nice setup going. All right. So for all of you that are joining us right now, welcome to the webinar. Just a reminder, once again, friends, to make sure that you log into your Gmail account so you can access the live chats. We're going to be screenshotting the chats to make sure that we can provide attendance to see who is all here. So don't be afraid just to put your name out there. All right. So it looks like the number of viewers hasn't changed. So with that being said, we're going to be getting started with our webinar. So we're going to be screen sharing.
Hey, Jordan, Tristan, Sarah, Rebecca, Grant, good morning. Good morning.
All right, everyone. Good morning. Today, as part of the RCSM 310-410 seminar and webinar series, this is the third talk of the series. It's going to be going into nonprofit law, doing what you love legally and ethically. So once again, our mission as a nonprofit alliance is to strengthen the social sector with a talented and prepared workforce. So before we get started, I know some of you guys are new. You are RCSM 150. So we're just going to be introducing ourselves first. So I'll go first, starting off with me at the far right. My name is Nathaniel Bebot. I am currently a senior at Indiana State, majoring recreation sports management with an emphasis in youth leadership. I am double minoring in environmental science and nonprofit leadership.
I am Josh Mans, and I'm the picture right beside Nate. I am also a senior majoring in recreation and sports management with a concentration in recreation management, youth leadership, and a nonprofit leadership minor.
I am Courtney Johnson. I am the picture right in the center. I'm also a senior majoring in recreation and sports management and minoring in nonprofit leadership.
I am Tierra Howell. I am a psychology major and a nonprofit leadership minor. This is my last year here at school, and I'm going to be a therapist in open homeless shelters when I am finished.
Good morning. My name is Jakeesh Garrett. As you see, I am the person in the far left corner. I'm also majoring in recreation and sport management with a concentration in recreation management youth leadership. Also, I'm minoring in nonprofit leadership as well. And I hope you guys enjoy our webinar today.
All right. So we're going to get started with our webinar. So for our session, this session will display the best practices in creating and operating a nonprofit in a legal and ethical manner. This session will cover specifically compliance through maintaining tax-exempt status through IRS Form 990, properly establishing and utilizing bylaws, financial supervision of the board, and compliance of employment law. So our learning objectives will pertain to understanding the importance of the competency, legal and ethical decision-making, and how it is incorporated into nonprofits, and also specifically for us students in the nonprofit minor. We want to identify compliance and regulations that nonprofits must follow in order to legally maintain 501c3 status as a charitable organization, and to assess and underline legal issues that can potentially arise from nonprofits, such as maintaining your taxes exempt status, financial supervision of the board, compliance with your bylaws and employment law. So our targeting competency, as we brought up before, is legal and ethical decision making. So just a basic summary. This is an actual, this picture is from the NLA website, kind of highlighting into more detail what the Alliance wants us to cover in regards to this competency. So it highlights basic laws, regulations, and professional standards that govern nonprofit sector operations, including a basic knowledge of risk and crisis management, ethics, and decision-making. So one important highlight to cover our first objective is, why did we choose to do a webinar on legal and ethical decision-making? Well, first of all, as a group, we believe that we chose this competency because we all believe as a group that this is a competency that we need to further develop in. In regards to RCSM 150, it relates specifically back to that class in regards to the foundations of a nonprofit. So the three categories we're going to be focusing on in regards to legal and ethical decision making are the compliance and bylaws, fiscal management, and incorporating risk and crisis management into those compliances. This approach, we're approaching this competency in more of the corporation approach. Therefore, we believe that the bylaws and the fiscal management aspect are two important areas to focus on, especially with RCSM 150 as you're learning the foundations of nonprofit organizations. So one term that we're going to be bringing up constantly throughout this webinar is compliance. So the term compliance refers to the legal requirements and regulations that are imposed by local, state, and federal governments. So for nonprofit, as nonprofit professionals, we have a legal and ethical obligation to comply with the laws and regulations in order to maintain 501c3 status. So at the end of the day, if you can't maintain compliance, your organization cannot operate under the tax-exempt status. Further, it is difficult to assess the need in which the nonprofit was created in the first place. So for our first topic, we're going to transition into the compliance of bylaws, which will be led by Josh and Tierra.
Good morning, everybody. This is Josh again, and I'm going to be telling you guys about bylaws and how you make them. So your bylaws, to start off, are both a legal document and a roadmap for your organization's actions. When you're forming these bylaws, they're kind of like a formative agreement or a contract between the corporation and the governing body of the nonprofit, which is typically your board of directors. And if a nonprofit wants to seek 501c3 tax exemption status from the IRS, they must be incorporated. And to be incorporated, you will need to have a set of bylaws that they can look over and check out to make sure that you are serious about your organization, that you want to take it further. Your bylaws are also an internal manual for how your organization will operate. So other than the obvious things like the name and location of your organization and what its purpose is, you're also going to need a lot of other things inside of it. Those include governance. So whether the organization is controlled by a board or by its membership, typically, like I said, it is governed by the board of directors, though. And then it's also going to have when and how board meetings will be held and conducted. So a lot of them set them for a certain day within the month. So like the third Wednesday, for example. It'll just depend on the month and holidays. But so you'll have to put that in your bylaws, like when you will have them and like how they'll be conducted, what order they'll be going when you have those meetings. You're also going to have how your board of directors and officers will be appointed or elected. So that will vary from organization to organization, but you need to make sure those are in your bylaws. So when it comes time to elect new members or someone steps down, you know the process to take. You also have to have voting procedures, such as what constitutes a quorum, so that your board can make a decision. And you also need how your committees are created and discontinued. So this will, depending on your organization, you may not have any committees or you may have a lot of committees. So just making sure you list that in your bylaws on how you do that. You also have to have your number of directors for your board and the qualifications and terms of service for those directors on the board. And then you also need language that affirms the requirements and prohibitions for 501c3 organizations as set out by the IRS. The IRS is really in charge of everything about helps you maintain that 501c3 status, your tax exempt status. So you really need to make sure that everything follows what they're saying. You also need rules that govern conflicts of interest. So making sure those are set out in the bylaws so people know what to do with those and how the bylaws can be changed or amended. So sometimes a situation will come up where a bylaw needs to be changed or taken out. So just making sure that if the bylaws are created that, 20 years down the road when everyone has changed in the organization, that they will still know how to change that or amend that if necessary. Another thing about your bylaws is that they must be filed through the state office, usually your Secretary of State. You need to make sure you go through them so that you can be a registered organization within the state. And they will also have a bylaws template that you can use. Most state offices do, but if they don't, there are a lot of options online too to find a template for you to use. And then your bylaws also, they're not a public document, but it's wise to make them public. It makes you more transparent as an organization if you keep your bylaws available to the public, and they'll be more trusting of you and more willing to come donate to you or just be a part of your organization. And then a big thing to remember is that your bylaws are a working document and nothing is set in stone. Like I've said, things can be changed within it. So just to make sure you are examining your bylaws often to see if things need to be changed. And then if it is necessary to change them, make sure you change them. So now we're going to get into how to write your bylaws, because if you write them incorrectly, it could come back to haunt you. So the first thing you need to do when you're writing your bylaws is understand the purpose. So things like I mentioned on the previous slide, like your organization's name, purpose, governance, just everything that is going to go into your organization, what you guys want to put out as an organization. You need to make sure you understand everything. And then you also need to designate members to write these bylaws. So these are usually members of the organization, usually a committee of people. That way it's not just one person doing everything. So they'll have a whole committee helping bring everything together and write these bylaws. And the board of directors should be giving input on this too, because they are a crucial part of the organization. Next, you'll need to gather information. So just make sure that if your organization has other documents, make sure you stay consistent with all the other documents. You don't want your bylaws saying one thing and then another document saying the opposite. So just make sure that you gather all these documents together and make sure everything correlates together. You also want to get samples. So you don't want to copy another organization's bylaws, but they can be a useful guideline for you as you're creating your own bylaws. So you can actually call up other organizations that are similar to yours and ask them for a copy so you can see what they've written and get ideas for your own bylaws and transfer that into yours. And then next, you'll have to meet with an attorney. This helps you stay legal, doing what you love, like we said in our title. But so you need to find an attorney that specializes in nonprofits. There are a lot of those out there. And especially if you're a startup organization, money might be an issue for you. So you can probably get help from pro bono org. So that's just an organization that will give or help you write these for free. So you need to be on the lookout for those, but an attorney will be able to help you write your bylaws and make sure everything correlates within them. And then after that, you just need to write them. So there's a specific order that bylaws are in. So there's section headers that are going to be called articles, followed by sections that'll be in paragraph form. Just make sure you use simple and clear language in your bylaws so that everyone will be able to understand them when they're reading them, and keep it specific to your organization. You don't want to write something that is completely irrelevant to your organization. So this comes into play when you're getting samples. Don't just copy someone else's that may have nothing to do with your own organization. So next, we're going to talk about the compliance of these bylaws, and Tiara is going to be doing that.
Hi everyone, good morning. Okay, so now that you know what bylaws are, I'm going to talk about what if you do not comply with the bylaws. Okay, we're going to start with the Ultra Burrs Act. Why nonprofits must follow their articles and bylaws. Okay. There's a doctrine called ultra Burrs. It is a Latin term that means that act outside the permissible scope of authority set in the governing documents. Okay, set in the governing documents is authorized activity that can be ratified by the board. Like for an example, if a nonprofit enters into a contract that is outside of the scope of its permissible activities, the contract could be voided. Like at any moment, it could be voided. While there may be arguments that could be raised to enforce an intraverse contract, acting ultraverse puts the nonprofit at risk as well as those who are entering the transactions with it. So the outside contracts could be voided. It puts the nonprofit at risk, and the nonprofit you're working with or organized with at risk, and then puts others that are working there with them, with the contracts at risk as well. Okay, so the fiduciary duties risk, opening themselves up to an argument, breaching their duties by fulfilling one's fiduciary duties. It is a prerequisite to a statute in most states, liable for mistakes, good faith out of loyalty and obedience to the corporation, risk personal liability for any harm caused. So like this means that that if directors act in ways that conflict with the nonprofit's governing documents, they may be opening themselves up to an argument that they are breaching with their fiduciary duties, including the duty of due care and the duty of obedience. In most states, fulfilling one's duties is a prerequisite to a statute that basically says the board members can't be held personally liable for their mistakes. So as long as their mistakes were made in good faith out of loyalty and obedience to the corporation and with due care, by failing to fulfill their duties, they risk personal liability for any harm caused by their actions. Ignoring the rights of the nonprofit corporations, directors are ignoring rights in different states in their process and how they go about it. So if directors are ignoring the rights of the nonprofit corporations, most states have a process that permits a group of directors or voting members in a membership corporation to get together to bring a derivative suit on behalf of the corporation, which is it's a lawsuit brought by a group of directors or members against a third party. This is what the doctrine of ultra versus it's an act or transactions which may be illegal, is beyond company's power by not being within the object of the moratorium. And act ultra verse, the company is incapable of ratification. Act which is introverse, verse the company, but outside the authority of directors may be ratified by the company in proper form. The shareholders can ratify and act ultraverse the directors. But yeah, the third party, as I was saying, the third party is a insider or another director or group of directors. Why are these like lawsuits brought up? Is from time to time when relations break down, factions form on the board of a nonprofit, which means that the third party can be another insider, such as another director or group of directors, and they break down the nonprofit and the board member. D&O insurance and the structure. Let you guys look at this for a second. Okay, D&O insurance and corporate identification. Typical saviors for wayward nonprofit officers and directors will not save directors who act outside the scope of their authority, which means that the typical saviors for wayward nonprofit officers and directors. D&O insurance and corporate identification won't save directors who act outside the scope of their authority. D&O policies typically exclude the Ultraverse Act from coverage, and corporate identification is generally not available to those acting outside the scope of their authority. The officers and directors of nonprofit corporations. What happens to those who ignore the nonprofit articles and incorporations and bylaws? Losing the side of the guarantee lawsuit and consequences. So those who ignore the nonprofit's articles articles of incorporating bylaws are setting themselves up to be on the losing side of a lawsuit that could hold them personally liable for all of their consequences. And now we're going to have Courtney. Thank you.
Hey y'all, good morning. I hope everyone is awake and loving their coffee. So I'm going to talk about the fiscal management and rules and regulations. So this slide is just you were probably thinking about joining a nonprofit board straight out of college, right? So we have up here, we have some pictures from my childhood, and it says, "You got it, dude." And then Randy says, "Yeah, it's going to be a no from me, dog." So just kidding. Right out of college, we are more worried about getting a job and figuring out who we are. There are rules and regulations set in place to be a part of the board. Board members they are highly suggested to donate to their organizations, participate in events that are held through and for the organization, and fiscal responsibility and financial integrity. Board members may not realize, but their responsibilities are very broad, including but not limited to financial viability, program success, and even the very survival of the organization. You can even relate board members back to modern times. From Athens to the American frontier, communities have selected people to protect the common good of the people. So board members are basically public servants, and when you take more RCSM classes, you will figure that out. Board of directors is the governing body of a nonprofit. These people are responsible for overseeing the organization's activities. Board members meet periodically to discuss and vote on affairs of the organization. If you're in RCSM 150, I'm not sure where you guys are at in your coursework, but you will or should have learned that you need a minimum of 3 board members. Board members are not in permanent positions. Most organizations even have terms set up that fall between typically 2 and 5 years. It is best to have a mixture of paid employees and individuals within the community that all share the same drive and passion to the mission on the board of members. There are 12 golden rules in a nonprofit organization. So budgeting, program costs, diverse funding sources, overhead costs, cash flow, financial information, financial responsibility, operating reserves, accountability and transparency, financial integrity, responding to financial problems, and interdependence. I'll go into those a little more here. So the first one is budgeting. The budget provides the crucial information to all financial planning. You will make some budgets and do budgeting in RCSM classes with Dr. Salmuffel, so you'll be prepared for that. Program cost is number 2. It is essential that your nonprofit organization knows the cost for every event and plan that might happen, just in case you have those what ifs. Number 3 is diverse funding sources. Although this is not the easiest thing to do, it's a genius plan. Different types of income require different techniques. Overhead cost, nonprofits are required to account for all of their functional expenses. So an overhead cost might be program services like SAC at the YMCA, so before and after school care. This is also includes general admission, like buying a ticket to the Red Dress Gala or the annual event that is held at any nonprofit every year. And any fundraising that might happen through the organization is also in an under overhead cost. Number 5 is cash flow. The money that we get every day that goes into the bank to pay the bills is possibly the most important thing for a nonprofit. It's what keeps its doors open. This will be monitored, and it should be monitored everywhere. This is just like taking $5 from a person at the YMCA who doesn't have a membership so they can use the facility for the day. Financial information. This is basically learning the terminology and understanding the financial aspects of the nonprofit. Financial responsibility, making final financial decisions. This will be supported by good information, frequent communication, and appropriate authority between everyone. Operating reserves, having a certain amount of cash held back each year is crucial. We never know when something unexpected is going to happen. Accountability and transparency. It is very important to a nonprofit organization. Value due to everyone asking information and answers on how they get their money. So we as nonprofits want to explain and share all the information we have on how we get the money. We don't want to hide anything. We want to be very upfront about it. So we continue to get people's donations. Financial integrity, there are policies, descriptions, and internal controls to help maintain integrity dealing with money in the nonprofit organization. Responding to financial problems, bad things happen, events don't go as planned. When these things do happen, they require strong leadership, good communication, and decisive action. And then finally, interdependence. Financial management connects to every aspect of a nonprofit. Keeping everything connected is what financial leadership does. And then in RCSM 332, for one of the learning modules, we read an article that's called Nonprofits Can't Touch Their Money. This article, it's about a law that is currently affecting North Carolina's orchestra, as well as NCU and many others, as well as in 23 states, have created a law that protects endowments by preventing institutions from dipping into their principal money. This law hurts newer funds and endowments the most due to the law being formed in 1970. The hardest organizations that are hit tend to be colleges and universities. All right.
Okay. I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with my voice from earlier. I am Jakeesh speaking. Good morning, my lovely people. I know you all are very tired, but this information is very valuable, and can benefit you for the real world. Also, afterwards, if you do so happen to live on campus, the dining halls are still open and they're serving breakfast. So feel free to go feed your face. So, okay, today we'll be learning about risk management, crisis management, and how it relates to ethical decision making. Okay, so first I wanted to see if you guys had some sort of insight on what risk management was, which brings me to our second slide. So if you please could take literally a moment and let me know what do you think of when you hear risk management? What comes to your mind? Give you guys 60 seconds. Are you familiar with the term? And for those of you that has attended spring break camp, I'm pretty sure Sean Leffel has brought it up 1,003 times. So I hope you are. I see insurance. Yes, Sarah. Absolutely. That's definitely important. We won't want to get sued. About 30 more seconds here, guys. Okay, I came across 3 good answers. So we're going to get into this definition. Okay, so risk management is a process for making and carrying out decisions to minimize accidental or financial losses for businesses and also organizations. Okay, so by trying to prepare for these risks, you're either trying to prevent injury from others or from within your facility or a financial loss. Here I have 5 steps I would love to discuss with you guys. So the first step I have is identifying the risks, meaning as a prudent professional, you and your team should come together and figure out the unexpected and start to prepare and develop a plan. And secondly, I have analyzed the risks, meaning that you should determine the consequences and different strategies to prevent this incident from occurring, such as, risk avoidance and or elimination. Is it the program or activity too risky? You don't want to provide the service anymore because it's just too dangerous, or might end you somewhere in a deep hole that you cannot get out of, or we have risk transfer, which means that, to have insurance or to have waivers or documents for that activity or program that you are providing within your services or organization. And then we also have risk retention. This is with the organization or your facility knowing the risk, you basically a oops moment, but you can afford that oops moment because you don't have to worry about anyone suing you or, going into a deep end. So you can 100% take on that risk. And also we have like risk reduction and control. Try to like probably like train your staff or your like volunteers and team members on how to go about certain situations. Like basically like just give it the knowledge to your organization or your team to, you know, discover or plan to fix the risk. And thirdly, we have evaluate or rank the risk, which means you should like keep the program activity or like it's not that risky to manage. For instance, like I'm sorry, like is the activity fatal? Like would it cause like I'm sorry, not fatal, but like catastrophic? Like should you keep this activity or like is it like liable to like close your doors within your organization or nonprofit? Like is it like safe to keep or is it critical? Things such as that. And then last but not least, we have monitor and reviewing the risk, which means like put the plan to work, run activity or program and see how it goes when you implemented everything in the plan. Okay, now we're going to get in crisis management. When dealing with crisis management, options are, severity. A definition I have here is like a sudden situation that threatens the organization's ability to survive. Most people go wrong thinking that things will never happen, basically being in denial, which is never a good thing. For instance, dealing with natural disasters is a crisis management, which I have here as well. And okay, I'm sorry. Many of you probably laying in bed right now thinking, oh, I live in Indiana. I'm pretty sure like nothing's going to pretty much happen here. But yet we still have a possibility of having either a tornado, a flood, or earthquake. Now, would you rather be prepared or just wait until it happens and just run around with like a chicken with your head chopped off? Which brings me to FEMA. When you hear FEMA, like, have you guys ever heard of FEMA before? I'm gonna give you like 30 seconds to like answer that, yes or no, maybe. Kind of sort of got an idea of what it is. If not, it's perfectly fine. That's what I'm here for. Okay, so if not, FEMA is a federal emergency management agency. As future professionals in the recreation or nonprofit sector, we're liable to provide services dealing with outdoors. Having an emergency plan when the unexpected happens will have room for other things to stress out about instead of this. For instance, let's say like we had like a food festival outside. We're trying to like raise money for our organization. A tornado hits. Where are all those people going to go? Are you like, do you have a plan for that? Do you have a FEMA plan? Like, what are you going to do? And this also leads me to like work sabotage. Like work sabotage is also like a crisis management. Let's say, for instance, a coworker decides to breach his or her loyalty and whistleblowers. I'm pretty sure you guys know what whistleblowers mean. I hope so, because Sean Liffle mentions it all the time. When whistleblowers on the organization for like misusing grant money, this could lead to like max exposure on social media. This can either like close your doors, stop money from coming in, which leads me to like financial issues. Let's say, for instance, you were working for like this mysterious company and now you're out of a job because there's no longer funds in order to produce goods to serve the people, nor does the company want to support a conniving organization. I mean, not company, but the community. Who wants to support an organization that's not even using its money properly, which we just got talking about with Courtney here, which also goes hand in hand with our personal lives as well, which leads me like to personal crisis. And like let's say for instance, you just lost your job because of the organization is like misbehaving. You have rent that's due in the month, car insurance, phone bill. What will you do? It sounds stressful, right? I know. It's realistic and it can happen to anyone. So it's like a must for us to be prepared. And this pretty much leads me to how does risk management tie back to ethical decision making? So this pretty much goes hand in hand. You can't prepare for risk management if you're not ethically thinking. Good risk management requires good ethics, meaning people working within the organization or facility should have good ethics. Reason being is because ethics give guidelines for appropriate actions between individuals and groups in any given situation. Like for example, if someone misrepresents an organization product, the organization is liable for their product and might lose reputation or even market shares in the long run, all because of someone not ethically thinking and took a risk within the organization. So basically, my point is we deal with risk management and crisis management. I'm so sorry, you guys. Crisis management within our daily lives all the time. Like it never stops. It doesn't matter what field of workplace you're in. You're going to deal with risk management. You're also going to deal with crisis management. It's up to you to think ethically and make the appropriate decision when dealing with these crises. So show ethical leadership. Know right from wrong, and just be ethical. And thank you guys for your time. Now we're going to bring this back to Nate.
All right, folks. So we had a really great overview of what we find valuable and most important to cover in regards to legal and ethical decision making and complying with the bylaws, fiscal management, and incorporating risk management, crisis management into those scenarios. So just going to do a quick review. So starting with bylaws, as Josh and Tara went over, bylaws serve as a legal document and roadmap for your organization. It is important for your bylaws, since they are part of the foundation and associated directly with your board, to be constantly reviewed by the board, as they can be used in court for non-compliance. There have been many cases where bylaws have been brought up and have been utilized during court cases. For example, when you have like a conflict of interest, if there is a board member that does something for their benefit outside of the nonprofit, and if there is a procedure or a rule that goes, which all, excuse me, all bylaws should have a conflict of interest policy. It can be brought up and used, and that's why it's really important to keep those bylaws updated. So in the end, bylaws are a legal and binding agreement between board members and the rest of the stakeholders in the organization. With this in mind, nonprofits need to focus on the uniformity of their bylaws, as it can prevent any conflictions between stakeholders. So transitioning into fiscal management, as Courtney went over, nonprofits have a legal responsibility to be transparent with all stakeholders with what you're using your money for, and should be following the golden rules of fiscal management to align with the legal and ethical integrity of your nonprofit organization. Just like for profits, nonprofits can experience fiscal legal issues such as fraud. Therefore, it's important for nonprofits to have legal procedures and regular reviews set in place through their bylaws, and to make sure that their checks and balances are set in place. Another specific example that was brought up in our objectives is to kind of review. It's something I'm sure you guys have gone over currently in the middle of semester for RCSM 150, is the IRS Form 990. Which once again is, the United States Internal Revenue Service form that provides the public with financial information about a nonprofit organization. So this is when transparency comes into play, as the public has the right to view the nonprofit's annual budget. If this form is not turned in on time, or if it's not turned in at all, your nonprofit can first off get heavily fined by the IRS. They can lose their tax exempt status. And on top of that, you lose your credibility to the stakeholders and those that support your nonprofit. And these 3 points can also just be applied to compliance overall. Um, you know, our government is set up to follow these procedures, and being fined and wasting money like that is very inconvenient for your nonprofit. As as we have brought the emphasis before, in money, you need that money for your programs and services to support your mission, to support the need that the service that needs to be addressed. So it's important to and establish your nonprofit legally and ethically, and create that foundation the right way, so you can avoid those issues. And then we had Jakeesh talking about risk and crisis management, incorporating it into compliance into compliance scenarios, and specifically how it's ethically tied to the nonprofit. So with that being said, that pretty much wraps up the content in regards to the competency. Once again, we really appreciate you all coming out here, taking the time. We feel that, although this is a subject that we, heavily researched on and took the time to do more research and present this to you guys, if you guys have any feedback for us or anything that you feel like can support this competency, we would greatly appreciate any feedback. So once again, just a reminder for all of those that kind of came into the middle of the webinar to make sure you log into your Gmail, you've added your comments. Comments look great. Loved having the extra hand. So having time to take a look at the chats was really fun. Hopefully it was engaging. Another reminder that tonight we have pizza social. And before we log off, I just want to make sure to take the time if you guys have any questions. I'll give you guys a few seconds if you to add any questions, comments, or concerns into the live chat. But while we wait, we're going to have Courtney give another announcement.
So along with NLSA's event tonight, State Dance Marathon also has an event. It is from 6 to 8, so you can go before or after you go to NLSA and get pizza. It's called Oktoberfest. It's in the University Village apartment lawn. Admission is $5, but with that $5, you get food. You can get a caramel apple that you can decorate and put all kinds of treats on however you want to eat it. And then you get a pumpkin as well. So it's $5 in University Village Apartments lawn. And it is from 6 to 8. So it's right around NLSA's pizza. So when you go to the State DM event and then go get pizza, or go to the pizza event and then go to State DM's event, whatever you want to do, it's great being involved in both organizations on campus. So ask any questions and we'll answer them. And that's all I got for you.
All right. The live chats. Thank you guys for participating. As of right now, it looks like there aren't any further questions or comments. So with that being said, how about, I'm just reading the live chat right now. Dr. Shamal, he said, how about? Ooh, did you see the comment? That would be a great recruitment strategy to incorporate.
Yeah, we can talk about it and let you guys know.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely further discuss that. I'm going to screenshot that so I remember. All right. So, other than that, thank you all so much for coming. That concludes our presentation. Please feel free to contact us further outside this webinar if you have any further questions, comments. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and we really hope to see you at this pizza social. So once again, Pickerel Hall, at the lower level, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's going to be a blast. Hope to see you guys there. Real quick though, just to make sure that you know that we're still alive. We're gonna end off on a good note with a nice wave. Bye.
Everyone have a nice day.